So we are back again today. I'm going to continue watching this documentary, Survive a Merry Night, Abused in Rituals by My Parents. Um, in part one of this reaction video, I only got through 2.5 minutes. So let's see how much more we can watch together today.
About you.
Just in simple terms, what do you think recovered memory is?
Recovered memory is a child undergoes trauma. They're at risk if they tell anyone. So they must find a way to forget it. So they do. And they forget it until the time is safe for them to recall it.
Who is Dr. Elizabeth Loftus?
Well, she's always introduced by the media as a world-renowned memory researcher. She's a professor of cognitive psychology. She's also associated with the law department at UC Irvine.
These claims about repression are claims that, horrible brutalization is banished into the unconscious by some process that's beyond ordinary forgetting and remembering. And then, years later, you, according to the theory, go through some kind of therapy that lifts this veil of repression and makes you aware of the experiences. And it's that kind of claim that I just haven't seen any real credible scientific support for. It's a kind of a strange experience for me because, often the individuals who think they were abused or think they have repressed memories of abuse, they don't particularly want to talk to me. And they don't want to have their memories questioned. And they are typically, angry at people. This is a new experience.
Yeah, for both of us.
For both of us.
If I'm willing to do a documentary entitled Am I Crazy? My journey to determine if my memories are true, then one thing I have to do is truly question my memories. I have to commit to myself, I'm going to question it. And to me, the best way to do it is to talk to people who don't believe memories like mine exist.
I don't.
Yeah, just a quick comment there on how logically she states that. Like it makes complete logical sense to me too, and yet I can't imagine the amount of bravery it might take, but not just bravery, but perhaps like disconnection from the risks in some ways, which I've sometimes felt like was an experience I have, that I'll just launch into something that seems brave to outsiders, but honestly, I'm just like disconnected from the part of me that could assess risk in some manner, and it shows up as this like general sense of trust that everything's going to be fine, but there is a little bit of like lack of awareness of what could be at risk. The other thing that I noticed and my eyes immediately went to, and this is something I often track in humans, is just how their body seems and how their energy seems to come across. And, and of course I'm biased here. Like I think it's, I've read about this woman, Elizabeth Loftus, and I read about her at the time where I was quite struggling to come to terms with my own recovered repressed memories, and I considered her back then, at least, like as to be a very vile human being, like a really horrible human being. Like imagine devoting your life to creating bodies of research that discredit adult survivors. And I remember going through one of her papers. I don't know if it was her or some other researcher in her side of that split in Western psychology that I referenced in my earlier video. And it was just like poor quality research. It was one of those situations where I was just like, just pathetic, poor quality research. yeah, they basically like implanted, I think they were able to successfully implant memories of being forgotten at a mall or something into a child, and use that to conclude that memories could be implanted, thereby um, to support their hypothesis that recovered repressed memories are actually memories implanted by therapists. And there is just so much at flaw, like so many flaws in that line of reasoning that it just annoys me. But leaving that aside, the other thing I notice is just like, yeah, the quality of the energy of their bodies, like how they're seated. In my view, Mary has this like, upright, steady spine, like openness, stable energy, and like Elizabeth Loftus has like kind of a bent, crooked way of sitting, and um, there is this consistent smile in how she's talking, which to me sometimes reveals like, yeah, what's the story I have about her is that there is this hmm, yeah, like a smiliness in what she's presenting, and it's like kind of a aggressiveness, like she wants to prove a point or something, instead of being able to like present something with calm acceptance, curiosity. And it's fairly, it seems fairly ridiculous to me that she seems surprised that people with recovered repressed memories would not want to talk to her. Like that just seems very I mean, I would imagine it would need a high level of unawareness of how trauma operates to be surprised that someone may not want to talk to you if you are holding a theory that goes against, so deeply goes against their own belief system that it triggers them. Yeah. Anyways, let's continue watching this.
Don't know anything about your situation.
I'm a survivor of extreme abuse, of ritualistic abuse.
Ritualistic child abuse may include desecration of something sacred, group settings, torture. Ritualistic abusers sometimes hide their crimes within cults, churches, child pornography networks, and other organizations.
I was molested by a number of family member and non-family members. And I told you I made cookies for you with my mom's recipe, but she sexually abused me.
Your mother. So how old were you?
It was through a long period of my childhood.
But like what to what? I mean, starting what age?
Young to through teenage years. Yeah, so it was for a long time. Yeah.
And then what happened?
Then I had relatives who remembered, and I went to counseling. And I remembered.
So then how old were you roughly then?
About 37. Yeah.
And how do you know it really happened?
The real reason I know is that I just have a really spiritual connection, and that's just what I know to be true in my deepest self. But then also I do have 5 relatives with similar memories. Right. I had hoped they would be interviewed for the documentary. It looks like none of them will be, but
yeah, I just want to add a comment here. Like, I just wish more people were willing to share their stories, Just, I feel like we are trapped in this place of, it's like it's so common, and yet everyone is afraid of sharing their stories because no one else is sharing their stories. So it's kind of a very very bad bystander, like societal bystander effect situation we are trapped in. And for those of you who don't know what bystander effect is, like it's when, let's say there is like an accident on the road somewhere and there's a lot of passers-by and no one waits and stops to help the person who had an accident, because everyone else is waiting for someone else to jump in first. So, and this is being commonly recorded in populous urban areas around the world, across cultures, and it might seem like horrific at first. It's like someone's bleeding to their death and no one's waiting to help them, and but when you see an account for the bystander effect, it's like people are frozen together in the shock of what just happened, and everyone's waiting for someone else to take the first step, which is why it is recommended that if you are the one helping someone who had an accident, it's better to specifically like point at particular people and be like, you call the ambulance, you call the police, instead of being like, can someone call the ambulance, because then it creates a bystander effect. And I feel like our society is stuck in some ways in the bystander effect of talking about childhood sexual abuse, childhood sexual trauma, even though there's many humans starting to speak, but there is so many more who don't, and it's a tragedy. It's honestly a tragedy, and I wish I can really empathize with this woman when she's like, oh, I was hoping these other relatives would speak up, but none of them want to be interviewed. Like everyone is like too afraid of their reputation or something. I've experienced this directly myself.
I'm still hopeful about one. But really, in a way, it's okay that they don't, because most survivors don't have that kind of external corroboration. And I want this documentary to say to survivors, you're okay. And you don't need something external, because, I mean, that's really part of the abuse, was that your thoughts and your feelings and your perceptions are not enough. And so then, if in therapy or in recovery we say, well, you need external corroboration, what message is that? My cousin Lisa. If you say something you don't want to use, I'm just so glad you're willing to do it at all. And really, the first thing, I mean, the answer to this question, basically, you're my cousin.
Yes, we're cousins.
So I'm wondering if we have memories in common. And I was raped by our grandfather. Do you have a memory like that?
Yes. Yes, I do. I believe we came from a family that engaged in generational abuse, and that I was abused by multiple family members.
My father, do you think my father abused me? My father abused me by allowed me to be abused by other people.
Yes.
Did that happen to you?
Yes. I mean, he was not someone who physically touched me, but almost coaching others. Somehow taking pictures as well.
So this would be child pornography?
I have no idea what he was doing with what he was taking, but yes. Yes. Encouraging others to be involved in sexual acts with me and filming them, so yeah.
Okay, that definitely happened to me. Lisa allowed me to use her exact words, but her voice was replaced by that of an actor.
So now I basically have 5 minutes of your story, and I hope this won't be offensive, but your claims about what other people said, but I haven't heard those claims from them, and so I don't know. So I can't be sure if when you tell me, and I have an aunt and she says she was abused, or did the aunt really say that, and did the aunt really mean that, or did the aunt really mean something else, like emotional abuse rather than sexual or ritual abuse. So without having so little data, it's really hard for me to know what to think.
But if they did say that, I mean, I know that they did.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know.
Now, this is like a whole. This woman like really triggers the fuck out of me. Like I just oh my god, her like smiling face as she says all of those things. It's like she's not even talking about like she's basically saying to Mary that you are telling me that you have stories from these other relatives, but how do I know that you're not lying? So it's not even like asking her about like disbelieving her recovered memories or the recovered memories of her relatives. She's basically saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's how I'm hearing it, like that your narration that there are other relatives who also corroborate it is something I can't trust till I hear directly from them. And yeah, there is this like there's something about the absence of evidence phenomena that a lot of scientists, in my view, tend to hide under in some ways. Um, and there is often this fallacy of like absence of evidence is evidence of absence. Like if there aren't um, verifiable corroborated claims that something happened, then almost the fallacious assumption is that it did not happen. Whereas the right way to think about it is that we do not know, which in some ways, she's saying that like I don't know, but that's what she's saying. But her energy is like very dismissive. There isn't like a open curiosity of. There's a difference between saying, like, yeah, there is some unknowns here, and let's share more. Like, let's kind of let's see what other pieces fit in your story, and then inductively conclude something. And we may never like deductively conclusively say something, but there's like a dismissive energy in how Elizabeth is responding here, in my opinion.
No, and I understand that, but I know that they did. So you're asking, like, why do I believe it? Well, that's one of the reasons. And so then after I would remember something, I'd call one of them, and they'd, have a similar memory to a lot of my memories.
Your investigation about your memories was all on camera, and you did not know how it was going to turn out.
Yeah, I think that's why I did it. I really now think that I did it because I knew I needed to challenge myself that much. And now I realize I did this project as my way to confront my parents who are deceased. It was my way to sit across from my parents and say, why did you do what you did? And why aren't you now treating me good?
I traveled to Florida to interview Eleanor Goldstein, the author of 3 books disputing recovered memories.
Oh my god, how ridiculous is that? How ridiculous that this person devoted energy in their life to dispute, to write 3 books disputing recovered memories. It makes me wonder, where am I expending energy battling something in the outside world when I should be addressing something in the inside world? The only thing that comes to my mind is some of the opinions I've shared around what I believe is the intersection of transness and childhood sexual abuse. And I imagine many transhumans who read my wonderings or musings would not want to talk with me, or would find it very triggering to talk to me. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But yeah, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna expend energy like writing books upon it. Hopefully, there's better things to do with life.
My husband Jerry came with me as my camera person. Eleanor is about the same age my mother would have been. She invited us to stay with her, and I thought about doing it. Instead, we went to the hotel and figured out how to use sound equipment. So why don't you tell me how beautiful I am or something so I can see how the cameraman sounds in it.
Don't push your luck.
Okay, that's a wonderful response.
Confabulation is a mixture of fact and fantasy to create a new memory. We do that every day. We mix our memories up with other people's memories. So we've learned that memory is very, very pliable. And you can get people to believe anything that you want them to believe if you use the right techniques. How did you get your memories back? Did you get it back spontaneously? Did you get it back with the aid of a therapist who used some suggestibility?
That was my greatest fear in going was, I was like, they'll ask me some question that I'd never thought of before. And then I'll go, maybe my memories aren't true. The questions they asked, I'd already asked myself. I was an investigator when I remembered my abuse. I had been.
Yeah, this has also been my experience where anyone who has like questioned me on the journey of my recovery from a place of like disbelief has never managed to ask me anything that I hadn't already asked myself and like gone through the arduous process of like regaining trust in my own felt sense, in my own somatic felt sense. And the top reaction that I would have in those moments is like, oh my god, here comes like another fucking fool that I have to like educate about this, and they are talking as if they're experts. And when I look at the starting clip of, this lady Eleanor, like the way she's like, and I'm pretty sure Mary gets into this later on the documentary, like she has no credentials whatsoever. It's like a classic American story in some ways where, just people with no credentials whatsoever come up with theories and publish books. And it's not to say that credentials are everything. I don't think I value credentials. I don't give much weight to credentials either. There's something about lived experience that definitely matters. I actually think it's beautiful that in American society there is that avenue to really share your beliefs, your opinions, and see who buys your shit literally on Amazon, on YouTube.
Well, I'd done at that point 200 or 300 custody evaluations. I placed 100 kids in adoptive homes. And you always, of course, you investigate those homes very carefully. And I know how to do investigations. And so then when I remembered my own abuse, I treated it like, I could let myself just go, if I were the investigator on this case, what questions would I ask? And I asked myself all those questions.
I was seeing a counselor, and I had 5 hypnosis sessions. I don't have those with me, but I have, I have the...
Then how do you know for sure that these memories are true if you had 5 hypnosis sessions?
I asked for hypnotherapy, and I asked for it because I had young kids, and I had reasons to suspect relatives, and I needed to know.
Yeah, this has really been on my mind too. It's like as I feel about wanting to start a family myself, like it's really been on my mind. It's how am I gonna, like introducing kids to relatives and whatnot, and who do we trust, like who do we trust, who do we not trust. I feel like it's such a classic. I imagine there is like other adult survivors. If you're someone who's an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse, I imagine this has been on your mind. If you have any thoughts, comments, I'd love to hear. Like how do you not go crazy from wondering if every human you encounter, every relative in your family is going to try and sexually abuse your child. Yeah, it's been on my mind too.
Who to protect my kids from.
Oh, sure.
I transcribed the hypnosis tapes, but listening to those and transcribing them, that was an excellent psychologist. She did not ask any leading questions. I think that survivors, and I tried to do this, like I wouldn't go on antidepressants for a long time because it's like, oh, my parents are more likely to believe my memories are true, and then they'll go get treatment if I don't do anything wrong.
No.
That's not why they don't believe you.
No, it's not why.
Why do you believe me?
Because I know you.
When did you start believing me?
Several months after I met you.
And what made the difference?
I didn't disbelieve you in the beginning. I just had to get to know you better.
What made the difference with believing me?
Nothing in particular. I just got to know you.
Bullshit memories that come back like that out of the blue. I spoke in Canada at Simon Fraser University, dentist, and all of a sudden 20 years later some patient comes and says, I remember 20 years ago you abused me when I was in the dental chair, but I forgot about it until I went to therapy. Now I remember.
I was wondering why you interviewed her. I know she's written a couple of books that
She's written
I've
three
read.
books. She's written 3 books, but she's not a memory expert.
No,
she's
she's
not.
She's not a mental health expert. But I interviewed her because I was told that there was someone who had firsthand information that Marilyn's memories were not true.
And now, Miss America of 1958. From Atlantic City, New Jersey. Miss Colorado!
It would not be possible to know or understand me unless you knew about the unending sexual violations I endured as a child and as a teenager. The trauma was so...
Yet again, I want to invite you to just notice the energetic difference in how she's talking about stuff, and how both Elizabeth Loftus, the professor, and the other lady, Eleanor, like they have like a mocking, laughing, dismissive energy instead of like a steady transmission. Like, there's a steadiness in how this woman is talking. There's a steadiness in how Mary's talking. Even when Mary asks questions to her husband, there's like an open curiosity. It's like, yeah, why did he believe me? And I remember asking my latest therapist that question. I started doing equine therapy earlier this year, which is like horse therapy. Like you go on I would go on a horse farm and communicate with horses, and then things would come up in me as I was trying to relate to them, and my therapist would help me process those. And this was, I'd already like gone through lots of therapy after memory recovery, but I had a major like CPTSD. I call it unfurling, like when just things get really chaotic, and I needed to like get into therapy again. And actually just spending time at the horse farm was so grounding, like so soothing, because these horses, they carry so much self energy, as they call it in internal family systems. They're like so steady, they're like strong, powerful, graceful, supple. So it's just like all of the qualities that a healed body has. And just spending time with a horse, like feeling them, allows us to absorb some of that, allowed me to absorb some of that. But I asked this therapist, it's like, why do you believe me? Like, what makes you believe me? How do you know that I'm not lying? And she just said something like, because, I can tell. Like, just let me just say that no one who goes through the effort of like coming to these sessions with me is I haven't encountered. She was like, I it's not that there aren't people who misremember things, but it's just that I can tell. Like, I can just tell. And it's about the energy. There's something about the energy in which one speaks. And I talk about this in a different video. There's like a more panickiness to the energy that just wanders haphazardly, and then there is like a steady knowing, and it might be really heartbreaking. I mean, it is so heartbreaking, but there's like a steady knowing in how you communicate it, at least in my experience, and I feel that in the experience of like this woman and Mary herself. Steady knowing, and also curiousness to see how people respond to that. And I wonder how much of that comes from just like practicing speaking your truth, and how much of that is related to the fact that you're speaking truth itself. Yeah, I feel like even people that I've talked to who have not spoken their truth to many humans, when they share about their childhood sexual abuse, when they've shared that with me, that has just been like a steady transmission.
Severe, I did what many children do in order to survive. I split, or to use the psychiatric word, I dissociated. I split into what I call a day child and a night child. As difficult as this is for most people to believe or understand, until I was 24, I, the day child, had no conscious knowledge of the night child.
All I'm saying is I knew this very beautiful, intact, happy-go-lucky,
And how well
smart
did you
woman.
know her?
Well, not very well, except that I was in a class with her every single day.
But I had been told that she had firsthand information that Marilyn's memories weren't true. And so I had questions like, well, tell me about the time she confided in you. They took a class together in college. She has no other information about her.
Did she tell you that Marilyn's memories were false? Or was that... Oh, she did.
Well, she told me that they were very, that...
Questionable?
Questionable. She will allow me to use some footage.
What footage?
Of Marilyn? From a talk she gave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't
because
know.
she doesn't want to be confronted. She has a prepared speech, and that's what she's willing to acknowledge, but she doesn't want to be confronted, apparently.
Oh, I really get to talk to her. I'm nervous and excited.
Hello.
Hi, Marilyn. It's Mary Knight.
It's nice to hear your voice.
It's good to hear your voice. I just have so much respect for you. I remembered in my abuse in '93, and it was in like a year later, my counselor gave me this video of a presentation you did. And so I took it home. I was sitting in my living room listening to your presentation. And of course, when you say, if you're...
Just a side note here, like, isn't it so cool that we are here in 2024 and no counselor has to hand out such material? This is all available on YouTube. Yeah, you can just like search for shit and just watch these videos. You don't have to like get them through some source. It's pretty amazing.
You're comfortable, if you're a survivor and you're comfortable standing, you may do so now. I stood up in my living room.
Oh, I love that.
And I thought, someday I want to do what Marilyn's doing for incest survivors, I want to do for survivors of ritual abuse. So,
and that's what you're doing.
It is.
I ask survivors to stand for several reasons. One is because I'm always hoping there are some of you here today who are as empowered as I finally am. It took me 53 years to get rid of shame, but I don't have an ounce of shame today. I'm so very proud of who I am, and I hope that there are others.
Oh my god, this just gives me like goosebumps hearing us speak to this, because it is so fucking empowering, just like speaking your story out loud on the internet or in any public spaces. That is what she's referring to, just like. And the beauty of the internet is that most humans won't even come across your story, because who's not many people are searching for childhood sexual abuse. Not many people are like following that hashtag. So most humans are not going to come across your story, and even if they do, most people won't bring it up with you because they don't know how to talk about it. But then there's this sense that, oh, I'm not hiding anything. Like, my story is out there in a corner of the internet. It's public, but it's kind of like putting up a poster in a public square in a small alpine village in Austria. Most people are not going to notice it, but there is a sense of like, oh, I've claimed my space in the public, and I have nothing to hide, and it releases so much. Oh my God. I mean, it just, it's so freeing. It's like really like freeing. And yeah, just wanted to highlight that as my direct experience. And if you want to share your story, like, I would be very happy to help bring that out of you and support you through that journey and publish it on my channel. I live for that. Reach out in the comments or message me and we can discuss.
Of you here today who have also worked through the shame.
Do you think survivors need to go public in order to heal from the shame?
Oh, I do not. No, I think each of us is on a different journey. Some people will stand publicly without shame. As long as survivors work through the shame, if the reason they don't stand is because of shame, then that's a problem for me.
Did you know Eleanor Goldstein in college?
I did not know Eleanor Goldstein in college.
I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go back to college. And people would say to me, do you really think you can go back and just be a junior in college? That wasn't the problem. The problem was how people reacted to me. I went to the football game and people were lining up for my autograph.
The Miss America pageant, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Let's join Miss Colorado, Marilyn Van Derber, at the Hammond organ.
At that time, Miss America was very, very highly regarded.
I am old, so I can remember when the Miss America pageant was the most popular TV show. That was
old.
Yeah, that was before the Super Bowl.
What about the former Miss America, Marilyn Van Derber?
She went through a tremendous amount of all kinds of different therapy before, highly suggestive therapy, before she told the story of abuse.
So that's not what it was reported in People magazine. Is there some other way you have
I've watched lectures that she's given,
and in lectures she said what?
She's talked about the massive amount of therapy.
But that was after remembering.
I'm not sure of that, no.
What she has said publicly that she remembered. I mean, I have the People magazine here.
Yeah, but I've read a whole bunch more than just People magazine about that case. It's a very suspicious case.
And tell me more why you said that.
I just believe that she had lots and lots of different kinds of therapy, and so we can't know whether what she ultimately came up with is an actual memory or is a product of suggestive therapy. We just don't know.
How old were you when you first had therapy?
My memories came up when I was 24. I did not start therapy until I was 39.
You think she's not telling the truth?
I don't know, but I've heard about a whole bunch of other therapy.
Afterwards?
No, I'm not sure of that.
So your concern is what therapy she had before 1960?
I just don't know that those memories are real.
And then her sister, of course, always remembered sexual abuse.
Well, we don't know exactly what her sister remembered, though. I've never read exactly, what the sister remembered. The sister supposedly felt there was some kind of abuse, but I don't know what.
Again, yeah, I want to notice her energy. Her energy is like getting more and more closed, and she's stuck in this like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And from my perspective, she's very protective. She's like really protective of her belief and feels very closed to further, I wouldn't call it data, but further points that have been provided. And in my perception, even her face kind of reflects like the terror of receiving one of these. And I mean, my best hypothesis would be that she probably has repressed memories herself, and it's also possible that she herself sexually abused her kids. So then it becomes extra tricky to, yeah, it becomes extra important to just discredit all of this. And, she's devoted her career to discrediting this work. So to me, that just indicates that there is a lot locked away. And so it's important, like her protectors are like putting up these barriers for all sorts of any questioning that is coming towards her, because the Pandora's box is like crowded, probably in her case.
It is
Sexual abuse.
that the sister was remembering. So I just don't know.
So that could be a corroborated case if the sister has continuous memory of the memory that Marilyn has.
Well, I don't know that. Yeah, well, we'd have to know a whole lot more. And I only get to know in depth about the cases that I work on, and the rest of them, it's kind of newspaper knowledge.
So I had a press conference, and the next day it was on the front page of the Rocky Mountain News and the Denver Post. I got a phone call. They're calling your sisters. I called my sister Gwen in San Francisco, and I said, if you want to go public with this, do it in California, because we're never going to get off the front pages in Denver. The next morning, the third day, it was on the front page of the paper again with my sister's story and my picture. I waited until our daughter awakened. She had just come home from her sophomore year in college. She woke up, and I said to Larry and Jennifer, I have to get out of here. I have to go. So we put on our sweats, and we went to the high school track. We were jogging around the track, and the woman with her 2 dogs came. We always said hello. She stopped me. And she said, Marilyn, we're so proud of what you're doing. And I'm so grateful. Your sister came forward this morning. I had been upset about that. And I said, really, why? And she said, because yesterday, on our most popular radio talk show, people were calling in and saying, why should we believe her? Now that your sister has come forward, they will have to believe you. I was stunned. I looked at her and I said, if people are not going to believe 53-year-old me, then who is going to believe a child?
Wow, a really, really powerful line there. Yeah, it's so complicated. Yeah, it reminds me of the hashtag Believe Women campaign around sub-campaign, I suppose, of like the Me Too movement. And yes, like there are cases where people yeah, seems like there are definitely cases where people push the truth, kind of extremize it from what it is. So violation can become a rape. And there is something about due process of the law and verifiability, and yet in cases of like childhood sexual abuse, it's just impossible to verify from external sources, and it really to me points out all of the brokenness or incompleteness, I would say, of our legal system in dealing with this. Yeah, I was contemplating this, like these big lights are giving me a headache now. I was contemplating lodging a case in the Indian legal system against one of my perpetrators who's alive. It just seems impossible, like or an impossible amount of energy, both in terms of money and time, to actually bring something out of it. Whereas, hypothetically, if I were to just find other ways of seeking justice just directly from him, which I've contemplated in the past, it would just be so much quicker, so to speak. Yeah, after exploring that, I actually decided that it's not worth my energy, and ended up joining a restorative justice training program that is being run by Hidden Water, which is a childhood sexual trauma focused organization, like healing organization.
Why didn't you tell anyone about the abuse? I mean, I get asked, like, well, why didn't you tell someone when you were a child?
I know. I did tell someone when I was about 6.
Who did you tell? Who was it?
I don't remember. But the story got back to one of my 2 parents, and they realized that they would have to do something to silence me. Dad made me, he made me do something. He made me eat something that I thought was poisonous, and I thought he was killing me. I thought my father was killing me.
Yeah, this is the other complicated angle of repressed memories of sexual abuse, where even your memory of you having spoken up about it might also be repressed, you know? Like maybe I did tell someone in the family, and because they already knew what was going, they just like shushed me. Like that's a possibility, and that also might be like repressed under the layers. So it's that's like the first question. You know, I told my maternal grandmother, after I told my maternal grandmother for the first time, my maternal grandfather was my main perpetrator. After I told her that he had raped me when I was a kid, her first question was like she was in complete shock and disbelief, which is, you know, understandable. And then she broke down and she's like, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" And that triggered the fuck out of me back then. Yes, like, you know, and she doesn't even speak English, and how do I even like communicate all of this trauma related stuff in my native tongue, Marathi? That's like a whole other challenge. But yeah, I really wonder if I did tell her at some point and then she just shushed me, and she also has forgotten that. Now she's asking me, why didn't you tell anyone? You know, who knows? There's no way to verify this. I mean, I suppose I could like really go deep into my own memory recovery, but the memory of being like shushed is gonna be so much more hidden than the memory of the abuse itself, possibly. So it's complex, really complex.
And your father's a physician, right?
Yeah, he
so
is.
he would know whether or not that would kill you.
Yeah, he would.
But at age 6,
I didn't know.
you thought it was going to kill you.
I did. And I was awfully surprised to wake up in the morning because I thought I was going to die, but I woke up. But I was unsure that I thought I might die the next day. It took me a couple of days before I realized that I was going to live.
Yeah. And it did silence you. And was that when you started? Was that when you started hiding that knowledge of it from yourself?
Yeah, that is because I could never talk about it again. I could never think about it So anytime I thought about it, I would have to push it away. I would just say, forget it.
Have you read this book?
No, I haven't.
I recommend it.
Okay.
It's good. It talks about the connection between mind and body.
Okay.
And yeah,
I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, I'd heard things about it, and then I read it, and I thought, this is who I want to interview. And then I found out he was doing a conference in Portland.
What does it mean, the body keeps score?
We are our bodies. Our head is only 1/7 of our whole organism, and our frontal lobe, where we have any thoughts, is only 1/4 of that. The function of the brain is to take care of the body. And so when you get traumatized, everything in your survival brain, which is like about half of your brain, gets set to be worried about survival. And that's all expressed in bodily sensations. And then the next part of your brain is involved in creating a map of the world. And so as your brain forms, you don't know anything about what's going out there, and that part of the brain, which you call the limbic system, you can call it any number of things, it creates a map of what's going on out there and how I do react to. And it tells you what is safe, what's dangerous, who am I in relationship to my surroundings, where do I go to get the good stuff, what do I avoid to get the bad stuff. And so that is a hardwired map of your brain. Your early experiences determine that map of your brain. So if people beat you up and tell you that you're a rotten kid, that map of the world is, I'm a rotten person, I'm a terrible person, and the world is an unsafe place. Extremely difficult to change. These are hardwired parts of the brain, and our job of my profession is to find out how we can rewire these very primitive maps. And so at the very core of trauma is the whole notion, that our brain scan showed it, is the verbal language center of the brain gets knocked out when people become extremely upset. From the very first moment I started to see traumatized people, the issue of people not remembering or just seeing images, just having feelings, was very prominent. I wrote about it the moment I started to write about Vietnam veterans, that these memories were really very different from the memories of the movie you saw yesterday. And that's what's really fascinating, is that the language center of the brain shuts down, all that memory stuff becomes complicated, and that memory of trauma is different. And what became very clear is that if you're not allowed to talk about the trauma, or you're not allowed to help, for people to help to make sense out of being dumbfounded, or as Shakespeare says, struck with speechless terror, then the memories goes away, but your body keeps reacting because your body knows in some ways. And that is really the very first thing that got me interested in trauma, is that I wrote a whole bunch of case histories of people who were in the Coconut Grove fire in 1943, who couldn't remember what happened, but on the anniversary of the fire, they would run out in the street and scream, "Fire, fire," and try to hurt people together. And Vietnam veterans would reenact that trauma, but wouldn't remember what happened.
There were a few things that I have always remembered that I think were not right. I remember my dad saying that he was sexually attracted to me. I think that's...
How old were you when he said that?
You know, I don't think it matters how old someone is. It's just wrong.
I mean, you can say, oh yeah, you know, some things you just take as a joke. People say stupid things.
That's not something I think a father would usually joke about, that he's sexually attracted to his daughter.
What did you say? How old were you? You don't remember?
Yeah, I do. I remember I was about 13.
You sent that email and said, "This is Eleanor's daughter, a survivor." And she's a survivor. I'm like, wow.
I think it's pretty courageous of her after so many years to go public.
So you're sure you're a survivor of abuse?
Oh yeah. As sure as I can be, without having, you know, footage of it.
Yes.
And I have to trust that. Otherwise, where does it leave me?
Do you remember actually telling your parents about it?
Yeah, because I didn't know they had anything to do with it. The first memory that came up, I just remembered babysitters.
How did your interest in the subject begin?
So I was doing all this research, and my function was to find out information, and I was sitting at my desk one day, and there was an article, and it said, parents claim to be falsely accused.
So that was a lie.
But absolutely, the deeper truth is that she had a daughter, who was having memories.
We have to help each other and forgive and understand and have empathy and not carry grudges forever and ever, generational, one generation after the other. Hates, hates, hates. He touched me. Oh, my God, he touched me. And therefore he touched me and he's dead. He's dead. And
So even if there was the incestuous touch, you think the family should
I don't
still
know
stay
what
together?
Incestuous touch is. I
Well,
mean, intercourse,
touch,
if somebody
you know.
comes into your bedroom and forces himself on you, that's one thing. What if what? I had an uncle, my sister says, used to fondle her. He'd hold a newspaper like this and he'd fondle her. Okay, he's dead. Don't ever speak to him again, he's dead. He made a terrible mistake.
So even fondling, you think?
Say, get out of here, Uncle Irving, leave me alone, and walk
So
away.
you think the little kid should be responsible to do that?
I think at a certain point, if it's uncomfortable, they should speak up for themselves and be responsible for themselves, not carry a grudge from century to
But
century.
if there was sexual touch, do you think the family should still stay together?
Of course.
Even if there was
Absolutely, yes. I don't think sexual touch is the horror of all horrors. I don't think so. I think we make a big to-do about nothing.
How did the child sexual abuse affect you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't pin anything on it.
You don't know of any way it affected you?
I don't. Nope.
At age 6, she was fondled.
I read you told you were afraid you were pregnant.
That's just because I didn't know. I was like naive and.
Wow, this is like wild. Like the first time I watched this documentary, I don't actually remember this part where they reveal that Elizabeth Loftus was sexually abused as a child, and it's so ridiculous that, I mean, I also feel empathy for her, that she is unaware of the impact it's had on our system. But I mean, if I meet someone who has this history and they go, "Oh, it was just a little thing, didn't really affect me," I don't do that directly in front of them out of care for what they might experience, but inside I'm like rolling my eyes. Yeah, this is wild.
Oh, did you not know how sex?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, so
I just thought maybe, he left some sperm somewhere and, or whatever, and maybe then when you turn 13, that's when it kicks in and makes...
Wow, that's wild that she was 6 when she was abused and she was afraid she might turn pregnant for like 7 years. That's insane.
You're pregnant.
Oh. Yeah, she testified for my father in the lawsuit in which I sued my parents and won.
Daughter wins sex abuse case against parents.
The judge believed me, and the case was corroborated. Well, I had a sister who always remembered, and I had a father who said it's not sexual abuse if a father makes his daughter touch his penis. Well, actually it is. It's a crime.
Yeah, and he said that in a deposition.
Yeah, he did.
In the case, Lynn Crook, the part that McNally includes is that she testified that her father said, "Keep your legs together," but the full quote is, "Keep your legs together or I'll think you want me," which is, I consider, extremely inappropriate. But he only quoted that first part of it, making it seem like there was no evidence. But, if a father really does say that to a daughter, to me that is evidence that he is not appropriate sexually.
Well, I don't know whether it means he did anything, but as far as the accusations of Lynn Crook, I think they're extremely dubious.
How do you feel about Dr. Loftus?
I feel like this is the most if her father said in court that he doesn't think making her touch his penis is sexual abuse, I don't know how someone could hear that and still hold the, I don't know if any of that was true stance that this woman, Elizabeth Loftus, is holding.
Oh, I think that I think she designed a defense for people who were facing civil.
Okay. I think that's it for today. We covered significantly more, 30 more minutes of this powerful documentary. Yeah, really fascinating how on both sides of this battle there is adult survivors. Like Elizabeth Loftus is clearly an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and she's supporting parents, like she supported Lynn's parents in the case that Lynn filed against them. And Eleanor, at least the way she talks about her sister being fondled by her uncle, if the uncle fondled her sister, it's very likely that he fondled her too. And I think she ended up abusing her own daughter. It just kind of reveals that on both sides of the coin there is adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. There is something about that feels softening in a way. Like instead of like getting all worked up and raging against these humans, it creates this moment of like, oh wow, they are in such a deep delusion, deep denial. Yeah, the system is doing everything it can to protect them from acknowledging the horror of what they experienced. I think it's still important to like discredit such humans in a kind manner. Yeah, fascinating documentary. That's all for today. Thank you for tuning in, and if there is other documentaries you would like to watch with me and have me respond to, please leave a comment, and please do like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me know, who this is reaching and how it's affecting you. That keeps me going. Take care. Good night.